My name is Hazel Thompson, and I'm 26 years old. Last Sunday, during what was supposed to be a peaceful family dinner, my parents called me a worthless dropout right in front of everyone. "Look at your sister," my mother said, gesturing toward Victoria with pride while staring at me with pure disgust. "She's everything you'll never be." My father nodded in agreement, adding that I was wasting my life playing around with computers like some teenage boy. They had no idea that hidden in my garage was a revolutionary app worth $15 million, and my phone was about to ring with the call that would change everything forever. Before we dive into this incredible journey of family betrayal and ultimate triumph, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing stories of overcoming the odds. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next when I reveal the shocking truth about my so-called perfect sister. Growing up in the Thompson household meant living in Victoria's shadow from the moment I could walk. She's 2 years older than me, and from day one, our parents made it crystal clear who the favorite child was. Victoria was the golden girl who could do no wrong, while I was constantly reminded of my shortcomings and failures. Victoria graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Law School, something my parents never let me forget for even a single day. She landed a position at the most prestigious law firm in Boston, married a wealthy doctor named Jonathan, and lived in a mansion in the suburbs. Every family gathering became a celebration of Victoria's latest achievement, while my accomplishments were either ignored or dismissed as insignificant. I remember when I was 18, I had managed to build my first computer from scratch using parts I'd saved up for over 2 years. I was so excited to show my parents what I'd created, thinking they might finally see that I had talent in something. Instead, my father looked at it with disgust and told me I was wasting time on toys when I should be focusing on real education like Victoria. My mother just shook her head and walked away without saying a word. The comparison became even more brutal during our recent family gathering last month. Victoria had just been promoted to partner at her law firm, making her the youngest partner in the company's history. The entire evening was dedicated to celebrating her success, with my parents inviting all their friends and relatives to hear about their daughter's incredible achievement. I sat in the corner, watching as Victoria basked in the attention and praise. She wore a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and her smile was perfectly practiced as she accepted congratulations from everyone in the room. When someone asked about me, my mother's expression would instantly change to one of embarrassment. "Hazel is still finding her way," she would say with forced politeness, which was her diplomatic way of saying I was a disappointment. My father was less subtle. When his business partner asked about my career, he simply said, "We don't talk about Hazel's situation. Let's focus on Victoria's success instead." The most painful moment came when Victoria gave a speech thanking our parents for their unwavering support throughout her journey. She talked about how they had always believed in her potential and provided her with every opportunity to succeed. As she spoke, I realized that I couldn't remember a single time when my parents had expressed genuine belief in my abilities or potential. What my family didn't know was that while they were celebrating Victoria's conventional success, I had been working 18-hour days in my converted garage, developing something that would revolutionize the restaurant industry. Every night after my day job at a local computer repair shop, I would come home and code until the early hours of the morning. My workspace was hidden behind stacks of old boxes and unused furniture that my parents had stored in the garage years ago. I had set up multiple monitors, powerful computers, and testing equipment that I'd purchased with every spare dollar I could save. To my parents, it looked like I was just playing around with gadgets, completely unaware that I was building the foundation for a multi-million-dollar empire. The app one was developing would streamline restaurant operations in ways that had never been attempted before. It would integrate inventory management, staff scheduling, customer ordering, payment processing, and analytics into one seamless platform. I had already run preliminary tests with simulation software, and the results were incredible. Restaurants could potentially increase their efficiency by 30 to 40% while reducing operational costs by 25%. But every time I tried to explain my work to my parents, they would cut me off before I could finish the first sentence. "Stop making excuses for your lack of direction," my father would say. Victoria didn't need to hide away in a garage playing with computers. She went to school, got a real education, and built a successful career. The irony was devastating. While they criticized me for not following a traditional path like Victoria, I was actually creating something that would eclipse her achievements in ways they couldn't even imagine. But their constant comparisons and dismissive attitude had taught me to keep my dreams hidden from people who couldn't see my potential. Victoria seemed to enjoy watching me struggle under our parents' criticism. During family dinners, she would subtly steer conversations toward topics that highlighted her success and my apparent failures. She had perfected the art of appearing supportive while actually undermining my confidence at every opportunity. Our parents built Thompson's Family Dining from nothing, starting with a single restaurant 40 years ago and growing it into a chain of 12 locations across 3 states. The restaurants were known for their homestyle cooking and family-friendly atmosphere, generating millions in annual revenue. From childhood, both Victoria and I had worked summers learning every aspect of the business, from dishwashing to management. Despite Victoria's complete lack of interest in the restaurant industry, our parents automatically positioned her as the heir apparent to the family empire. They constantly talked about how her legal background would help expand the business and protect it from potential lawsuits. Meanwhile, my years of hands-on experience and genuine passion for improving restaurant operations were completely overlooked. During my time working in the restaurants, I had identified numerous inefficiencies that were costing the business significant money. The ordering systems were outdated, inventory management was chaotic, and staff scheduling was handled manually with paper charts that led to constant confusion. I saw how these problems created stress for employees and frustrated customers, ultimately hurting the bottom line. After months of careful analysis, I developed a comprehensive proposal for modernizing Thompson's Family Dining with digital solutions. I created detailed presentations showing how integrated technology could reduce food waste, improve customer satisfaction, and increase profit margins. The system I designed would allow customers to order through mobile apps, automatically track inventory levels, and optimize staff schedules based on predicted customer traffic. I spent weeks perfecting my proposal, creating mock-ups and financial projections that clearly demonstrated the potential benefits. The technology would pay for itself within 18 months and generate substantial additional profits afterward. I was convinced that this could be my opportunity to finally prove my value to the family business. The presentation meeting was scheduled for a Thursday evening at the flagship restaurant. I arrived early, setting up my laptop and organizing my materials with nervous excitement. This was my chance to show my parents that I wasn't just a dropout playing with computers, but someone who could contribute meaningfully to the family's success. When my parents arrived, they seemed distracted and impatient from the beginning. I launched into my presentation, explaining each component of the digital transformation plan and showing them the projected financial benefits. But their expressions remained skeptical throughout my entire pitch. "This is too complicated," my father interrupted before I could finish. "Our customers come here for simple, honest food, not to play around with fancy technology. These gadgets are just unnecessary complications that will confuse our staff and alienate our customers." My mother nodded in agreement, adding that the restaurants had been successful for decades without needing computers and apps. "If it's not broken, don't fix it," she said dismissively. "We're not interested in turning our restaurants into some kind of high-tech experiment." I tried to explain that the technology would actually make things simpler and more efficient, but they had already made up their minds. The meeting ended with my father telling me to focus on getting my life together instead of coming up with impractical schemes to fix problems that didn't exist. 3 weeks later, Victoria requested a meeting with our parents to discuss her ideas for modernizing the restaurant chain. She had prepared an elaborate presentation that included many of the same concepts I had proposed, but repackaged with legal terminology and corporate buzzwords. She talked about digital integration, customer engagement platforms, and operational optimization as if these were revolutionary ideas she had developed herself. Our parents were mesmerized by Victoria's presentation. They praised her innovative thinking and business acumen, calling her ideas brilliant and forward-thinking. She spoke with confidence about implementation timelines and return on investment, using the exact financial projections I had calculated weeks earlier. I sat in stunned silence as I watched Victoria receive credit for my work. Every concept, every solution, every projected benefit had been stolen directly from my rejected proposal. But because the ideas were coming from their golden child, our parents were ready to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in implementing the exact same plan they had dismissed when I presented it. After the meeting, I confronted Victoria privately in the parking lot. "Those were my ideas," I told her, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. "You stole everything from my presentation and claimed it as your own work." Victoria's response was cold and calculated. She smiled smugly and told me that ideas meant nothing without the ability to execute them properly. "Mom and Dad trust my judgment because I've proven myself," she said. "You're just a dropout who plays with computers in a garage. No one's going to take business advice from someone like you." Then her expression turned threatening. "If you try to cause problems about this, I'll make sure everyone knows about your history of unstable behavior and wild accusations." Who do you think they'll believe, Harvard Law graduate or community college dropout with delusions of grandeur? The betrayal cut deeper than any criticism from my parents ever could. This wasn't just about stolen ideas or professional recognition. This was my own sister deliberately sabotaging my attempts to contribute to the family business while positioning herself to benefit from my work. The person who should have supported me had become my worst enemy, and she was using our parents' favoritism as a weapon against me. 6 months after Victoria's theft of my restaurant modernization ideas, our family faced a devastating crisis when Grandmother Thompson was diagnosed with advanced Alzheimer's disease. Grandma Thompson had always been the one family member who believed in my potential, encouraging my interest in technology when everyone else dismissed it as a waste of time. She was also the only person who saw through Victoria's perfect facade to recognize her manipulative nature. Throughout my childhood, Grandma Thompson's house had been my sanctuary. When my parents were busy praising Victoria's achievements and criticizing my choices, I could always find comfort and understanding with my grandmother. She would listen to my ideas about computers and technology with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions and encouraging me to pursue my passions regardless of what others thought. As her condition deteriorated, I made it a priority to visit her every day after work. Sometimes she recognized me, and we would have wonderful conversations about my app development project. Other days, she was confused and disoriented, but she still seemed to find comfort in my presence. These visits were precious to me, knowing that each one might be our last meaningful interaction. During one of her lucid moments, Grandma Thompson told me about her will and estate plans. She had decided to leave her beautiful Victorian house and substantial savings account equally to Victoria and me. The house was worth nearly $800,000, and her savings totaled another $400,000. This inheritance would provide me with the financial security to quit my day job and focus completely on developing my app. "I want to make sure both my granddaughters have opportunities to build the lives they want," she explained with tears in her eyes. "Victoria has already found her success, but you still need support to achieve your dreams. This money will give you the freedom to take risks and pursue your vision without worrying about paying rent." The knowledge that my grandmother believed in me enough to provide this life-changing support filled me with renewed determination. I began working even harder on my app, knowing that soon I would have the resources to take it from prototype to market-ready product. I imagined the day when I could show my family that their faith in Victoria had been misplaced, while their dismissal of my potential had been a costly mistake. Unfortunately, Victoria discovered our grandmother's inheritance plans during one of her infrequent hospital visits. While I was there every day providing emotional support and companionship, Victoria showed up only when it was convenient for her schedule. But during one particular visit, she managed to charm her way into a private conversation with Grandma Thompson while I was getting coffee. When I returned to the room, I found Victoria looking through Grandma Thompson's personal papers and legal documents that she had brought from home. Victoria claimed she was just helping organize important paperwork, but something about her expression made me suspicious. She left shortly afterward, saying she had an urgent work commitment. Over the following weeks, Victoria began visiting our grandmother much more frequently, always when I wasn't there. She would call ahead to find out my schedule, then arrive during times when she could have private conversations. During these visits, she systematically began planting seeds of doubt about my character and reliability. Victoria told our confused grandmother fabricated stories about my supposed drug problems and erratic behavior. She brought falsified documents that appeared to show arrests for drug possession and disorderly conduct, all expertly created using her legal knowledge and access to official-looking forms. She claimed that I had been hiding these problems from the family, and that giving me access to inheritance money would only enable my destructive behavior. The manipulation was particularly cruel because it exploited Grandma Thompson's deteriorating mental state. In her confusion, she couldn't distinguish between Victoria's lies and reality. The medications she was taking made her memory unreliable, and Victoria took advantage of every moment of disorientation to reinforce her false narrative about my character. During one of my regular visits, I found Grandma Thompson acting distant and worried. When I tried to discuss my app development progress, she seemed uncomfortable and changed the subject. She kept asking me strange questions about whether I was taking care of myself and staying out of trouble. I was confused by her concerns but attributed them to her medical condition. 2 days later, I received a devastating phone call informing me that Grandma Thompson had passed away peacefully in her sleep. I rushed to the hospital, hoping to say goodbye, but she was already gone. Victoria was there with red, puffy eyes, playing the role of the grieving granddaughter perfectly. The reading of the will took place a week after the funeral. I sat in the lawyer's office expecting to hear about the inheritance that would change my life and provide the foundation for my business dreams. Instead, I listened in shock as the attorney read a recently modified will that left everything to Victoria alone. According to the new document, Grandma Thompson had decided that Victoria was the more responsible granddaughter who could be trusted with the family legacy. The will included specific language stating that I was dealing with personal problems that made me unsuitable for managing significant financial assets. It recommended that Victoria use the inheritance wisely and perhaps provide assistance to me only if I sought professional help for my issues. I sat frozen in disbelief as Victoria accepted the enormous inheritance with tearful gratitude. She thanked our grandmother's memory for her wisdom and promised to honor her legacy by using the money responsibly. The performance was flawless, and everyone in the room was moved by her apparent devotion and humility. After the meeting, I approached the lawyer privately to ask about the timing of the will change. He explained that Victoria had brought our grandmother to his office just 2 weeks before her death, accompanied by medical documentation of my supposed problems. Grandma Thompson had seemed confused during the meeting, but Victoria had guided her through the process with patient explanations about why the change was necessary. The second devastating betrayal was complete. Victoria had not only stolen my business ideas but had now manipulated a dying woman to steal my inheritance as well. The financial security that would have allowed me to pursue my dreams was gone, transferred to someone who already had everything she needed. The loss felt like losing my grandmother twice, first to death and then to my sister's manipulation. Despite the crushing blow of losing my inheritance, I refused to give up on my app development project. Working longer hours at my day job and taking on freelance computer repair work on weekends, I managed to scrape together enough money to continue improving my restaurant management platform. The app was becoming more sophisticated with each update, and I knew it had the potential to transform the entire industry. My breakthrough came when I connected with Carlo and Maria Rossetti, an elderly Italian couple who owned a small family restaurant called Rossetti's Kitchen. They had been struggling with the same operational challenges that plagued most independent restaurants: inefficient ordering systems, inventory waste, and scheduling conflicts. Unlike the corporate chains, they were desperate enough to try innovative solutions. Carlo and Maria agreed to let me test my app in their restaurant for a trial period of 3 months. They had nothing to lose and everything to gain from improved efficiency. I spent weeks customizing the platform to match their specific needs, creating user interfaces that were simple enough for their staff to learn quickly while still providing powerful management capabilities. The results exceeded even my most optimistic projections. Within the first month of implementation, Rossetti's kitchen experienced a 32% increase in operational efficiency. Food waste dropped by 28% because the inventory tracking system automatically adjusted ordering based on actual usage patterns. Customer satisfaction scores improved dramatically because orders were processed faster and more accurately. Carlo and Maria were amazed by the transformation. They told me that for the first time in years, they were actually enjoying running their restaurant instead of constantly fighting against chaos and confusion. The app had eliminated most of their daily stress while significantly increasing their profit margins. Word about the remarkable improvements at Rossetti's kitchen began spreading through the local restaurant community. Other small business owners started asking about my technology, and I began receiving inquiries from restaurant industry publications wanting to write articles about the innovative management system. This growing attention should have been exactly what I needed to launch my app into the broader market. Instead, it became the catalyst for Victoria's most vicious attack yet. Through her extensive network of professional contacts, she learned about my successful test implementation and realized that I was on the verge of a major breakthrough. Victoria's first move was to contact Carlo and Maria directly, posing as a concerned family member who wanted to warn them about my background. She told them that I had a history of mental health problems and unreliable behavior that made me unsuitable as a business partner. She claimed that my technology was probably stolen from other developers and that using it could expose them to legal liability. The Rossettis were confused and alarmed by Victoria's call. They had only positive experiences working with me, but Victoria's professional credentials and apparent sincerity made them question their judgment. She provided them with the same falsified documents she had shown our grandmother, creating doubt about my character and reliability. When I arrived for my regular check-in meeting the following week, Carlo and Maria seemed uncomfortable and distant. They explained that they had received concerning information about my background and felt they needed to terminate our testing agreement immediately. They were genuinely sorry, but they couldn't risk their family business being associated with potential legal problems. I was devastated by the loss of my testing partnership, but Victoria wasn't finished with her sabotage campaign. She hired a cybersecurity expert named Trevor Maxwell to attempt hacking into my computer systems and stealing my source code. Trevor was a former colleague from her law firm who had transitioned into corporate security consulting. The attack was sophisticated and persistent, targeting both my home network and the secure servers where I stored my app development files. Trevor used advanced penetration techniques to probe for vulnerabilities in my security systems, attempting to gain access to years of work and research. If successful, Victoria would have been able to steal my entire project and claim ownership of the technology. Fortunately, my background in computer systems had taught me to implement robust security measures. I had encrypted all critical files with military-grade security protocols and stored backups in multiple locations with different access requirements. When I detected the unauthorized intrusion attempts, I was able to trace them back to Trevor's consulting company. The discovery that Victoria was actively trying to steal my work through cyber crimes was a shocking escalation of her campaign against me. This wasn't just about professional competition or family favoritism anymore. She was willing to commit serious felonies to prevent my success, demonstrating a level of malice that I had never imagined possible. When I tried to explain the situation to my parents, they refused to believe that their golden child could be capable of such behavior. My father accused me of making up conspiracy theories to explain my own failures, while my mother suggested that I was becoming paranoid and needed psychological counseling. Victoria had successfully positioned herself as the victim of my supposed delusions, turning my parents into unwitting accomplices in her sabotage campaign. The isolation was almost unbearable. I was fighting a war against my own family with no allies and no support system. Victoria had superior resources, professional connections, and our parents' unwavering trust. Every move I made was countered by her superior positioning and strategic advantages. As my app development neared completion, I began preparing for the annual Tech Innovate conference, the most prestigious technology showcase on the East Coast. This event would be my opportunity to demonstrate my restaurant management platform to potential investors, partners, and customers. Major venture capital firms, technology journalists, and industry leaders would all be in attendance. I had submitted my application months earlier and been accepted to present during the Startup Showcase segment. This 20-minute presentation slot could transform my entire life, providing the exposure and credibility needed to launch my company successfully. I spent weeks perfecting my pitch, creating compelling demonstrations, and preparing for the intense questioning that would follow. Victoria somehow learned about my conference presentation through her network of professional contacts in the legal and business communities. The prospect of me achieving public recognition and potential success triggered her most desperate and vicious attack yet. She realized that if my presentation was successful, it would expose all her previous lies and manipulations while establishing me as a legitimate entrepreneur. Her strategy was to coordinate a devastating family intervention designed to destroy my credibility and prevent me from attending the conference altogether. Victoria enlisted our parents as unwitting weapons in her campaign, providing them with carefully crafted evidence of my supposed mental instability and delusions of grandeur. The attack began on a Sunday evening when my parents arrived at my apartment unannounced, accompanied by Victoria and a man they introduced as Dr. Harrison, a psychiatrist from Victoria's professional network. They claimed they were staging an intervention because they were concerned about my deteriorating mental health and increasingly erratic behavior. "We can't stand by and watch you destroy your life with these fantasy business schemes," my mother said with tears in her eyes. "Victoria has shown us evidence that you've been having delusions about creating some kind of revolutionary technology company. You need professional help before you completely lose touch with reality." Dr. Harrison had been briefed by Victoria about my supposed symptoms of grandiose delusions and paranoid thinking. He explained that my belief in my app's potential and my accusations about Victoria's sabotage were classic signs of a severe mental health crisis. He recommended immediate voluntary admission to a psychiatric facility for comprehensive evaluation and treatment. My father held up printed copies of emails and documents that Victoria had fabricated, claiming they showed my attempts to contact major corporations with unrealistic business proposals. The forgeries were expertly created to make me appear desperate and delusional, filled with grandiose claims and impossible promises that no legitimate investor would take seriously. "Look at this nonsense," he said, waving the fake documents in my face. "You're claiming you've invented something worth millions of dollars while living in a tiny apartment and working at a computer repair shop. Can't you see how crazy this sounds?" The intervention was a carefully orchestrated psychological attack designed to make me doubt my own perceptions and abandon my conference presentation. Victoria sat quietly in the background, occasionally adding helpful details about my supposed symptoms while maintaining her facade of loving concern for my well-being. When I tried to defend myself and explain that my technology was real and functional, they interpreted my protests as further evidence of my mental instability. Dr. Harrison took notes while shaking his head sadly, commenting that my inability to accept reality was typical of patients experiencing severe psychotic episodes. The situation escalated when my parents announced that they were taking control of my finances for my own protection. They had obtained legal advice from Victoria about guardianship procedures and were prepared to have me declared mentally incompetent if I didn't voluntarily accept treatment. My access to family funds was immediately frozen, and they confiscated my credit cards and bank information. Victoria had also contacted my landlord with fabricated stories about my mental health problems and potential danger to other tenants. She provided him with falsified police reports claiming I had been investigated for threatening behavior and property damage. Within days, I received an eviction notice giving me 30 days to vacate my apartment. The final blow came when my parents confiscated all my computer equipment, claiming it was enabling my delusions and preventing me from accepting reality. Years of work, research files, and development tools were loaded into my father's truck and taken away to be stored safely until I received proper treatment. I was forced to move back into my childhood bedroom in my parents' house, sleeping in the same twin bed I had used as a teenager. My movements were monitored, my phone calls were restricted, and my internet access was limited to prevent me from pursuing my supposed delusional business schemes. Victoria visited daily to check on my progress and provide updates to Dr. Harrison about my continued resistance to treatment. This was my lowest point, the moment when I nearly gave up entirely. Everything I had worked for over the past several years had been systematically destroyed by my own family. They genuinely believed they were helping me by preventing me from pursuing my dreams, never realizing that they were actually enabling Victoria's campaign of sabotage and manipulation. Lying in that childhood bedroom, surrounded by remnants of my adolescent years, I felt completely defeated. The conference presentation that could have changed my life was just days away, but I had no way to attend without my equipment, my presentation materials, or even transportation. Victoria's ultimate attack had succeeded in isolating me from everything I needed to achieve my goals. In my darkest hour, salvation came from an unexpected source. Marcus Chen had been my closest friend since elementary school, and he was now a senior software engineer at Quantum Dynamics, one of the largest technology companies in the region. Throughout my app development journey, Marcus had been quietly providing advice, resources, and encouragement, believing in my vision when no one else would. 3 days before the Tech Innovate conference, Marcus appeared at my parents' house with a story about needing help with a computer problem. My parents, who remembered him as my studious childhood friend, allowed him to visit my room under their supervision. During our conversation, he slipped me a note explaining that he had been monitoring the situation and was ready to help. That evening, Marcus returned through my bedroom window after my parents had gone to sleep. He brought a laptop loaded with all the software and files I would need to recreate my presentation. More importantly, he revealed information that changed everything I thought I knew about Victoria's campaign against me. "She approached me 6 months ago," Marcus whispered as we worked to restore my presentation materials. "Victoria offered me $50,000 for information about your app and access to your development files. She claimed she wanted to help you by finding investors, but her questions made it clear she was planning to steal your work." Marcus had been recording his conversations with Victoria from the very beginning, suspecting that her motives were not genuine. He played back audio files of Victoria attempting to bribe him, threatening to destroy my reputation if he didn't cooperate, and discussing strategies for undermining my credibility with potential investors. The recordings were damning evidence of Victoria's criminal conspiracy against me. She had explicitly stated her intention to steal my intellectual property, manipulate my family relationships, and prevent me from achieving success through any means necessary. Her own words proved that every accusation I had made about her sabotage campaign was completely accurate. "I've been documenting everything," Marcus continued, showing me a comprehensive file of evidence he had compiled. Screenshots of her fake documents, records of her contact with your test restaurant, proof of the cyber attacks she ordered. "We have enough evidence to expose her and clear your name." But Marcus had an even better plan than simply revealing Victoria's crimes. He had arranged for me to stay at his apartment until after the conference, providing me with a secure location to prepare my presentation without interference. His company had connections in the venture capital community, and he had already spoken with several potential investors about my technology. The next morning, I left my parents' house before dawn, carrying nothing but the clothes I was wearing. Marcus picked me up at the corner and drove me to his downtown apartment, where he had set up a complete development workstation with access to high-speed internet and professional presentation tools. For the next 2 days, we worked around the clock to perfect my conference presentation. Marcus helped me recreate all my demonstration materials while adding new features that showcased the app's full potential. We also developed a comprehensive business plan that addressed potential investor concerns and outlined realistic growth projections. During this intensive preparation period, Marcus shared more details about Victoria's attempts to recruit him as an accomplice. She had approached him multiple times over the past year, each time becoming more desperate and aggressive in her demands for information about my work. Her behavior had become increasingly erratic as my app development progressed and the potential for my success became more apparent. She's terrified of you succeeding, Marcus explained. Her entire identity is built on being the perfect daughter who can do no wrong. If you prove that her parents were wrong about you, it destroys the foundation of her self-image and her position in the family. Marcus also revealed that Victoria had contacted several other people in my life, attempting to recruit them into her sabotage campaign. She had approached former classmates, work colleagues, and even casual acquaintances, spreading lies about my character and trying to isolate me from potential sources of support. The scope of her campaign was far more extensive than I had realized. Victoria had been systematically working to destroy my reputation and credibility throughout the entire community, ensuring that even if I did achieve some level of success, people would question my character and reliability. Armed with this new understanding of Victoria's methods and motivations, I began developing a counter-strategy that would not only protect my conference presentation but also expose her crimes to my family and the broader community. The war that she had started was about to turn against her in ways she never could have anticipated. While I was preparing for my conference presentation in secret, Victoria was orchestrating what she believed would be her final victory in our ongoing conflict. 2 weeks before the Tech Innovate conference, she announced her engagement to Richard Sterling, one of the most prominent venture capitalists in the technology industry and the same man I had planned to approach as a potential investor for my app. The engagement wasn't a coincidence or a romantic coincidence. Through Marcus's investigation, we discovered that Victoria had systematically researched Richard's background, interests, and social circles before engineering their first meeting at a legal conference 6 months earlier. She had studied his investment portfolio, learned about his preferences and business partners, and crafted a persona designed to appeal to his specific interests. Richard Sterling was exactly the kind of investor I needed for my restaurant management app. His firm, Sterling Ventures, specialized in technology solutions for service industries and had a track record of turning innovative platforms into industry standards. Victoria knew that securing an exclusive relationship with Richard would effectively block my access to the most qualified investor in my target market. My parents were absolutely thrilled by Victoria's engagement announcement. They saw Richard as the perfect match for their golden daughter, a successful businessman who shared her ambition and social status. The engagement party was scheduled for the weekend after the Tech Innovate conference at the flagship Thompson's family dining location, with over 200 guests invited to celebrate. During the engagement planning conversations, Victoria skillfully steered discussions toward her latest business interests. She began talking about her innovative ideas for restaurant technology, describing concepts that were identical to my stolen app development work. Richard was intrigued by her apparent expertise in an industry where he was actively seeking investment opportunities. Victoria's strategy was multi-layered and brilliant in its maliciousness. By the time of the engagement party, she planned to have Richard convinced that she was the creative genius behind revolutionary restaurant management technology. She would propose a business partnership that combined her supposed technical innovation with his investment resources and industry connections. To prepare for this presentation, Victoria had been secretly recreating my app using the stolen information she had gathered through Trevor Maxwell's cyber attacks. Working with a team of developers hired through her legal connections, she was building a functional prototype that duplicated my core features while adding superficial changes to disguise the theft. The timing was perfect from Victoria's perspective. My conference presentation was scheduled for the Friday before her engagement party, but she assumed that my supposed mental health problems and family intervention had prevented me from attending. She had no idea that Marcus was helping me prepare for the presentation or that we had documented evidence of her crimes. Marcus and I realized that Victoria's engagement party could actually become the perfect venue for exposing her fraud to the people who mattered most. Richard Sterling would be there along with other investors, technology journalists, and business leaders who could witness the truth about Victoria's stolen innovations. We began developing a plan that would allow me to attend the engagement party with irrefutable evidence of Victoria's crimes. The key was timing the revelation for maximum impact while ensuring that Richard and the other guests could clearly understand what had happened. During our planning sessions, Marcus revealed additional information about Victoria's relationship with Richard that made her deception even more calculated. She had been using her legal background to position herself as an expert in intellectual property law, claiming she could help Richard's firm avoid costly patent disputes and licensing issues. Victoria had even gone so far as to file preliminary patent applications for several of my app features, using slightly modified descriptions that would allow her to claim ownership of the underlying technology. She was systematically building a legal foundation for her theft while simultaneously undermining my ability to protect my intellectual property rights. The discovery of Victoria's patent filings was particularly infuriating because it demonstrated the premeditated nature of her campaign against me. This wasn't just sibling rivalry or professional competition. She was deliberately trying to steal years of my work and claim it as her own innovation while destroying my ability to benefit from my own creativity. But Victoria had made one crucial mistake in her elaborate scheme. Her focus on stealing my technology and manipulating my family had blinded her to the possibility that someone was documenting her crimes. She had no idea that Marcus had been recording their conversations and collecting evidence of her illegal activities from the very beginning. As the engagement party approached, we finalized our plan to expose Victoria's fraud in the most dramatic and conclusive way possible. The same event that she expected to mark her ultimate triumph would instead become the moment when her entire web of lies and manipulation finally collapsed around her. The Tech Innovate conference presentation exceeded my wildest expectations. Standing before an audience of 300 industry leaders, investors, and technology journalists, I demonstrated my restaurant management app with the confidence and expertise that came from years of dedicated development work. The live demonstration showcased every feature seamlessly, and the audience response was overwhelmingly positive. Richard Sterling was in the front row, taking detailed notes and asking perceptive questions about scalability, market penetration strategies, and competitive advantages. He seemed genuinely impressed by the technology's sophistication and potential impact on the restaurant industry. Several other investors approached me after the presentation, requesting follow-up meetings to discuss partnership opportunities. The conference success gave me the credibility and momentum I needed for the confrontation that would take place at Victoria's engagement party the following evening. Marcus had arranged for a small team of allies to attend the party with us, including a technology journalist from Industry Weekly and a patent attorney who specialized in intellectual property theft cases. Victoria's engagement party was everything she had planned. Elegant, sophisticated, and designed to showcase her perfect life to everyone who mattered in her professional and social circles. The flagship Thompson's family dining restaurant had been transformed into a glamorous venue with crystal chandeliers, designer floral arrangements, and a jazz quartet providing background music. I arrived fashionably late, wearing a professional business suit that projected confidence and success. My parents were shocked to see me, clearly expecting that I would still be confined to my childhood bedroom dealing with my supposed mental health crisis. Victoria's expression flickered with alarm for just a moment before she recovered her composure and greeted me with fake warmth. "Hazel, what a wonderful surprise," she said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "I'm so glad you're feeling better and could join us for this special celebration." The first phase of my plan was simply to observe and gather intelligence about Victoria's presentation. She had prepared an elaborate pitch about her revolutionary restaurant technology innovations, complete with professional slides and a functional prototype that had been built using my stolen source code. When Richard called for everyone's attention, Victoria took center stage with practiced confidence. She began explaining her vision for transforming the restaurant industry through integrated technology solutions, using the exact same language and concepts that I had developed over years of research and development. "I've been working on this project for over 2 years," Victoria announced to the captivated audience. "The platform integrates inventory management, staff scheduling, customer ordering, and financial analytics into a seamless system that can increase operational efficiency by up to 35%. She clicked through slides showing interface mockups, feature descriptions, and financial projections that were virtually identical to my own presentation materials. The only differences were superficial design changes and slightly modified terminology that disguised the theft without altering the underlying functionality. Richard was clearly impressed by what he believed was Victoria's innovative work. He asked several technical questions that Victoria answered confidently, having memorized responses based on my original documentation. Other guests murmured appreciatively about her apparent expertise in such a complex technical field. "This is exactly the kind of disruptive technology that Sterling Ventures looks for," Richard announced. "Victoria, I'd love to discuss a potential partnership that could bring this innovation to market on a national scale." That was my cue to step forward and request a moment to address the assembled guests. Victoria's face went pale as I approached the front of the room, clearly sensing that her perfect evening was about to be disrupted in ways she couldn't control. "I appreciate this opportunity to speak," I began, projecting my voice clearly throughout the restaurant. "I want to congratulate my sister on her engagement, but I also need to address some important issues related to the technology she just presented." I pulled out my laptop and connected it to the same projection system Victoria had used for her presentation. The first slide I displayed was a screenshot of my original app prototype, complete with timestamps showing development dates that preceded Victoria's claimed work by over 18 months. "This is my restaurant management application," I explained calmly. "I've been developing it for the past 3 years, and I presented it to our parents as a potential upgrade for Thompson's family dining long before Victoria claims to have started working on similar technology." The audience was confused but intrigued as I methodically demonstrated the similarities between my original work and Victoria's supposedly innovative platform. I showed side-by-side comparisons of interface designs, feature specifications, and even identical algorithm implementations that proved the theft was comprehensive and deliberate. Marcus stepped forward with a folder of documentation that included timestamps, development logs, and communication records that established a clear timeline of my work. The patent attorney I had brought began explaining how the evidence demonstrated willful intellectual property theft that violated multiple federal laws. But the most damning evidence came when I played the audio recordings Marcus had made of Victoria's attempted bribery and her explicit statements about stealing my work. Her own voice filled the restaurant as she described her plans to claim ownership of my technology and destroy my reputation through false accusations and manipulation. "She offered me $50,000 to betray my best friend," Marcus testified to the stunned audience. "When I refused, she threatened to destroy both of our careers and reputations. Everything you heard tonight was stolen from Hazel's original work." Richard Sterling's expression transformed from admiration to disgust as he realized he had been manipulated by someone he was planning to marry and partner with professionally. The other investors and business leaders in attendance began questioning everything they thought they knew about Victoria's character and capabilities. Victoria tried desperately to maintain her facade, claiming that the evidence was fabricated and that I was suffering from delusions about my supposed technological achievements. But the documentation was too comprehensive and the audio recordings too clear for anyone to doubt the truth of what had been revealed. The engagement party that was supposed to mark Victoria's ultimate triumph instead became the moment when her entire web of lies and manipulation finally collapsed in front of everyone who mattered in her professional and personal life. The aftermath of Victoria's exposure was swift and decisive. Richard Sterling immediately ended their engagement and publicly withdrew any consideration of business partnership, stating that he could never work with someone who had demonstrated such fundamental dishonesty and lack of integrity. The prestigious law firm where Victoria worked launched an internal investigation that ultimately resulted in her termination for ethical violations and potential criminal behavior. Within 6 months of my successful app launch with Richard's backing and investment, my restaurant management platform had been adopted by over 500 establishments across 12 states. The company, which I named Harmony Systems, was valued at $15 million during our series of funding round, with projections for international expansion within 2 years. The early success allowed me to hire Carlo and Maria Rossetti as senior consultants, bringing their decades of restaurant industry experience to our product development team. Seeing their excitement about contributing to technology that would help other small business owners achieve similar success was one of the most rewarding aspects of building the company. Victoria faced serious legal consequences for her systematic campaign of intellectual property theft and fraud. The patent attorney who had helped expose her crimes filed federal charges related to her fraudulent patent applications and cyber attacks on my computer systems. She eventually accepted a plea agreement that included restitution payments, community service, and permanent prohibition from working in technology-related legal matters. My relationship with my parents required much longer to repair, and honestly, it never returned to what it had been before. They struggled to accept that their golden child had been capable of such calculated deception while their supposedly troubled daughter had been building something genuinely innovative and valuable. The revelation forced them to confront their own biases and favoritism in ways that were uncomfortable but necessary. During several difficult family conversations, my parents acknowledged that they had failed to see my potential and had allowed Victoria's manipulation to influence their judgment. My father admitted that he had been wrong to dismiss my technological interests as worthless hobbies instead of recognizing them as legitimate business skills. My mother struggled with guilt about her role in enabling Victoria's campaign against me. While we eventually reached a place of mutual understanding and respect, the damage to our family relationships was permanent. I learned to appreciate their efforts to rebuild trust without forgetting the pain they had caused through their willingness to believe Victoria's lies over my truthful explanations. One of my proudest achievements was establishing the Harmony Foundation, a scholarship program that provides financial support and mentorship to students from non-traditional backgrounds who are pursuing technology education. Many recipients are community college students, adult learners, and others who don't fit the typical profile of successful entrepreneurs but demonstrate genuine innovation and determination. The Foundation's mission statement reflects my own experience. Every innovative idea deserves to be evaluated on its merit, regardless of the background, credentials, or family support of the person who conceived it. True potential is often found in unexpected places, overlooked by people who mistake conventional success for actual ability. Building Harmony systems taught me that family support, while valuable, isn't essential for achieving your dreams. Sometimes the people who should believe in you the most are the ones who create the greatest obstacles to your success. Learning to persist despite their doubt and opposition can actually make you stronger and more resilient than you would have been with their encouragement. The technology industry embraced my story as an example of perseverance triumphing over adversity. I was invited to speak at conferences about overcoming family betrayal, building businesses without traditional support systems, and recognizing potential in unconventional entrepreneurs. These speaking opportunities allowed me to connect with other innovators who had faced similar challenges. My keynote presentation at the National Entrepreneurs Conference last month focused on the importance of documenting your work, protecting your intellectual property, and building relationships with people who judge your ideas based on merit rather than your background or family connections. The audience of 2,000 entrepreneurs gave me a standing ovation when I finished speaking. The most satisfying moment came when Thompson's Family Dining finally implemented my restaurant management system after initially rejecting it in favor of Victoria's stolen version. The irony wasn't lost on anyone that the technology they had dismissed as worthless when I presented it became something they were eager to adopt once it had proven successful in hundreds of other establishments. Today, as I look toward the future, I'm grateful for every obstacle that Victoria placed in my path. Her attempts to destroy my dreams forced me to become more resourceful, more determined, and more strategic than I would have been if success had come easily. The betrayal taught me to value authentic relationships while remaining vigilant against people who smile while undermining your efforts. The most important lesson I learned is that your family's opinion of your potential doesn't determine your actual capabilities. Sometimes the people who know you longest understand you least, especially when their perceptions are clouded by jealousy, favoritism, or their own limited vision of what success looks like. My phone is ringing again as I finish writing this story, probably with another opportunity for international expansion. 5 years ago, my parents called me a worthless dropout who would never amount to anything. Today, I'm building a technology empire that's transforming an entire industry. The difference wasn't a change in my abilities or potential, it was finding people who could see past their preconceptions to recognize genuine innovation. Have you ever had family members who doubted your dreams or compared you unfavorably to siblings? Share your experiences in the comments below, and let me know how you overcame those challenges to pursue your goals anyway. Don't forget to like this video if my story inspired you, and subscribe for more amazing tales of triumph over betrayal and adversity. Hit that share button to help spread this message to anyone who needs encouragement to pursue their dreams despite family opposition. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that your potential isn't limited by other people's inability to see it. Keep believing in yourself, keep working toward your goals, and never let anyone convince you that your dreams are impossible just because they don't understand your vision.